Hey everyone, welcome back to Black Travel and Culture. I am your girl, Kim, aka Kim with the Gems, and today is a special treat. Today, we are going to talk about my ultimate passion, which is travel, but from a different landscape. Is we're going to talk about how we can help the next generation experience travel in ways that they may not have had the opportunity to. And we have a special guest who's going to tell us all about his strategies to bring the next generation along and expose them to cultures and opportunities and education from a global perspective. If you're returning to Black Travel and Culture, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, thank you for joining. The only thing that I ask is that you go ahead, you hit the like button. It helps to get this message out to more people. Subscribe to the channel. Also share this video, because I think after you hear what we're going to discuss, there are people in your lives that this can really not only help, but also help our guest speaker get to his finish line, get to the goal line. We are a channel that simply discusses wellness, finance, and travel, with the common denominator being culture. Hi, Mr. Jordan. How are you?
I'm feeling good. It's a good Black History Month, so off to a great start.
Oh my goodness. Yes, it absolutely is. And we're going to just share a little bit more about our guest, Mr. Bijan Eric Jordan. He's an English teacher at Frederick Douglass Academy in Brownsville, New York. And that would be...
That was just for reality. I absolutely am in a high school right now. Yeah. Just so that they know it's real. You're not lying. I am here at Frederick Douglass Academy VII. Okay.
And Brownsville,
if that happens again, I'll mute myself. But yes, okay.
Okay. So, Mr. Bijan Eric Jordan is an English teacher at Frederick Douglass Academy in Brownsville, Brooklyn, New York, which is a public Title I school where most of the students come from families with low incomes. Mr. Jordan is also the coordinator for the Brownsville Abroad Travel Initiative, which is a program that has taken over 40 high school students on educational trips across the globe to learn about other cultures. They do this by immersing in the culture, and we'll talk more about those experiences later. But truth be told, without this initiative, these students would not have had the opportunity to do so. So welcome, Mr. Jordan. Can I call you Mr. Jordan, or what do you prefer?
I mean, we're grown. We're grown. You can call me Bijan, Mr. Jordan, Eric. A lot of people call me Eric just because it's easier, but either way, whatever you want to call me.
Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome, Eric, and thank you for taking the time out to join us here at Black Travel and Culture and share more about your program.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm very glad to be here.
First question that I have for you is, I'm wondering if you had a chance to see the Shannon Sharpe interview with Cat Williams.
Yes, yes, I've seen it and enjoyed it thoroughly.
It's
highly entertaining. Yeah.
Yes, it truly was. And I think the least talked about part of the conversation is probably most relevant to what we're going to talk about today. And it was all about travel, and it spoke to my heart, and it also made me know that amplifying this message to the world is what we really need to do. And so basically what he said, the beauty of travel, that's why most people don't have the empathy and the sympathy that they need to have for other people, is because they haven't seen other people. If you really travel, you'll see that all people is the same. And so basically what he's saying is there is so much power in simply having a passport. There is so much education in having a passport. And there's so much connection when you travel across the globe. And so with the initiative of Brownsville Abroad, I really have a few questions. And so let's just get started into how Brownsville Abroad came about.
Absolutely. So it started for me in 2016. So after college, I graduated in 2003. I went to NYU. And after I graduated, I took a gap year. It was something that I felt that I had earned, and I was very curious about life abroad. And it was a little bit random, but I had met a particular individual who was a Madrileño. He was from Madrid, Spain. And it was as simple as, I don't know anybody from Madrid, Spain. I know people who are of Latin heritage. And I just got curious. I wonder what life is like over there. So I asked him some questions. We talked this and that. His brother's still over there in Madrid, this and that. And I was 19 at the time. And it just occurred to me, it would be so cool to actually go and live there. You know what? What the hell? Why not? Let's do it. So that, I was crazy like that. I'm probably still crazy. But so after I graduated from college, I took my little money. I was selling Cutco knives my last 6 months in college. I worked at a coffee store in downtown Manhattan at one point. I took my little bit of money and I bought a plane ticket and I went and I lived in Spain for a few months. I lived in Madrid for a few months and then in Barcelona for a few months. I was in Spain for a total of 10 months. It was I can't put it into words here. We only have an hour, but it was a really transformative experience for me. And one of the things that it taught me is that, as one of my favorite authors, Zora Neale Hurston, says, we actually just started reading her book in my English class yesterday. She says, you got to go there to know there. So I think that travel there are some things that you can't teach with a book. And I say that as an educator who understands the power of education. Education takes many forms. But what I learned with that experience was that going there and doing what I did taught me things about the world and about that people are all the same, etc. So, all right, that's chapter one. We file that away. Then I come back to the States. I start my career. And at a certain point, I realized I had not been back for about 10 years. And I was kind of dying to go back, but I had started a family and life was complicated now. But I'm also a teacher, and this inspiration just popped in my head. I think I was doing laundry at the time. You have your best thoughts in the bathroom or when you're doing laundry. And I said to myself, now, how cool would it be if instead of just me going and for a visit, what if I actually made it into a trip? What if I made it into a trip for students in my school? How powerful would that be? And then the next thought I had, of course, was where the hell is the money going to come from, to do that? So that's where this all began. So we did our first fundraiser. That was actually my second time doing crowdfunding. The first time I raised about $1,700 to take a group of, no, I'm lying. I raised about $5,000, I think, to take a group of students to see Macbeth on Broadway, right? Wow. So we did that. That was 2013. Fast forward now, 2016, 2017. This is when Brownsville Abroad began. So we were, after the first trip, it definitely was like, oh, we have to keep doing this. We have to do it again. And our first trip was to Spain because I had lived there. So it was very much about wanting to kind of give away something of what I had gotten and kind of introduce students to a place in the world that I knew. And it's their choice to go where they go from there. And for the second trip, we had students vote. They voted on Japan. That was our most popular trip. And it was just, that one blew up and it just became like, I guess we can't stop doing it now, so we keep doing it.
Students probably are fighting to get into Brownsville Academy, Frederick Douglass Academy, just to be able to matriculate to go abroad.
Yeah, it's one of our major recruitment points now. I'm very proud of that. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
But I do have to say, I think I would be remiss in not pointing out, we do offer, we offer so much here, and there are so many different programs that we do and so many clubs and activities that get started up. Sometimes even students will end up starting one. We just had a book club that started. We have a boxing club. There's an MMA club that's back. There's a student who, one of our students here there's a barbering program that came into the school and taught students that so they could graduate with a trade. And one of the graduates of that program is actually basically starting their own business where, this was mentioned in the assembly today, where students can come and get free haircuts in the school from this person who's been a certified barber since he was 15 through the school. So when I said that about a major recruiting piece, but there's also, there's a lot that we do here. And that's probably why Brownsville Abroad has thrived, because this is a school that does so much for our community and so much for the students we serve, that this fits,
So that leads me to another question. For people who may not be familiar with Brownsville, Brooklyn, Can you
Mhm.
share a little bit about what the area is like? I know I
Mhm.
mentioned that most of the students come from low income families, but can you kind of
Mhm.
give a summary, a visual of what the neighborhood
A visual. Ooh.
are
So
like?
picture yourself, right? Here's how the scene starts. You're walking down the sidewalk, and no, I'm playing around. But I think of it
I
as,
was about to close my eyes.
yeah, right. Like, picture this, right? It's a working class neighborhood. Like, that's kind of the bottom line of it. But there's also just kind of the reputation of the neighborhood. Some of that is justified, some of it is not. So let's go there, right? So the reputation that Brownsville has is that. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if you can hear. There's actually people making noise outside the school. I can close the windows if I need to. But
Oh,
um,
I'm fine. I think you're fine.
okay, cool. All
Yeah.
right. So some of the statistical facts and measures, it is true that Brownsville is the neighborhood in Brooklyn that has the highest poverty rate. It does have a high level of violence. This is where many of them, this is the highest level of homicides. The highest homicide rate is what I mean to say in the city. So there's some justification for why people would start to have those kind of thoughts. And yet at the same time, that really is not what daily life is like. Like, that doesn't really define what people's experiences in Brownsville are. I have been a teacher at FDA 7 now for, this will be my 17th year here at FDA.
Oh,
I
wonderful.
taught for 3 years in Bed-Stuy previously to this. I taught at Bedford Academy High School. That's where I began my career. And I've been here for 17 years now, so I have a pretty good broad range of experience here that I can talk about. And what it really, I don't know how else to say, it's a working class neighborhood. What do you see when you're walking down the street? You see kids walking to or from school. You see, people just driving their cars down the street. You see somebody, closing the gate behind their car to go off on their way to work. There are some difficult things that happen here, but it is not the common daily reality, But it also is true that, as you mentioned before, thank you for including that our school is a Title I school. And for anyone who doesn't know, that means that there are certain income thresholds. And if you have a certain number of students in your school who come from families where their income is below a certain threshold, that qualifies you as Title I. It qualifies your school sometimes for special programs or opportunities or funding. And it's based on, it's based on the lunch forms that students submit. It's based on, I think they don't do lunch forms anymore, but it's based on the economic measures. And it is an objective way to say, yeah, there's, some of our students they have fewer economic opportunities. This is an underserved community. But
Okay.
I think people also have to be here and see what it's like here to understand that this is not some kind of, a dismal, or dreary place. There's a lot of life here.
Right. And I think when you say that it is a working class neighborhood,
Mm,
um, it lends itself to also share that most of the working class families under normal circumstances are not getting their children passports and sending them
mm.
on
Right.
international vacations. Am I
Yes.
correct in that assumption? Okay.
You are correct in that assumption.
Okay.
Yeah. There are some schools where it's a little bit more common for the school to do travel programs, including international travel. Here, we had done some international travel before I started doing, what we've been doing. I wasn't the first one to do that here. I wasn't. But there's a particular way that we do it now, and particularly involving fundraising so that we're covering the vast majority of the cost of the trips. That's part of what's special about what we do. Just to
Okay.
build that bridge,
Yeah.
an idea that's really appealing to me. And I have to point out Dr. Lorraine Monroe, and also possibly resolve any possible confusion. So this is FDA 7. There are many Frederick Douglass Academies in the city, and FDA 1 was started in Harlem in 1991 by Dr. Lorraine Monroe. And there was a 2020 interview that she did. One of the things that she said I thought was so special is, like, one of her inspirations for the first Frederick Douglass Academy was to give their scholars, and we do not call our students, we call them scholars, right? Because words matter. But so one of the inspirations for her with their scholars was to give them the kind of education that people pay thousands of dollars for, right? So to kind of replicate some parts of the level of quality and the access and the opportunity that students get with private school education. but finding ways to build more bridges, use partnerships, use, resource, just pull it together so that students can have access to what other kids have access to as well. Like level the playing field, make it more common, make it more normal for students who come from working class backgrounds to graduate from high school with a passport, to graduate from high school having gone to, out to another place outside the United States. So I really took that idea from her. And I think, again, it's a good fit for what FDA is about. Yeah.
There's so much that you said in describing not only the neighborhood, but also the scholars, not students, the scholars. And it's words do matter.
Yes.
That is, I do hear the sirens in the background. That is Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's very Brooklyn.
So
that Brooklyn authenticity. Yeah.
Words do matter. Leveling the playing field is so critical when it comes to the mind of young people, because we all know these are the formative years, right? And if you breathe life into them, and instead of calling them lazy or disadvantaged or low income, to describe them, they're being seen as scholars. And not only are they being seen as scholars, they're having the opportunity within these programs that you discussed previously, from the haircutting to, the different trades, as well as travel, to embrace that term. You're not just giving lip service, is what I'm saying. You're giving them an opportunity to embrace that term and feel that, they are indeed scholars. It's one thing to say you're scholars, but when you put your resources in motion and allow them to explore the world or learn, how to survive, or not even just survive, how to thrive outside of high school, it makes all the difference in the world. So I am such a fan of Brownsville Abroad, because traveling should not just be for the private schools or the people that are, spending $20,000 a year, to have their child educated, especially when, like you said, there's so many opportunities for crowdfunding and pulling resources to make this happen. Now, you did mention that you went to Madrid and you went to Japan. Can you share other destinations? I do believe.
Yes. So let me run it down. Right. So our first trip, 2017, Spain, we started in, we went across that. We started in Barcelona, and then I'm going to say it the Spanish way. Fine. And we passed through Zaragoza. So Zaragoza is a smaller city, but we had some friends there and we stopped over there, and that was a whole cool thing. And then we spent the end of the trip in Madrid. We spent a couple of days in each, just passed through Zaragoza, but, and ended up in Madrid. So that was 2017. In 2018, that was Japan. And we started in Tokyo. We went to Hakone. We went to, I think, Takayama, and we finished off in Kyoto. And that was each of our trips so far has been about a week plus, maybe 7, 8, 9 days. We had an 11-day itinerary for South Africa. That was the next one, 2019. And we started in Joburg. We went to Kruger National Park for part of that. Then we finished off in Cape Town. I actually was not able to attend that one. I had a 1-year-old at home at the time, but that was our third trip, South Africa. Then we know what happened in 2020. Nobody was going anywhere that year. No, that was, so that forced us to take a good little hiatus. So that was 2020, also 2021. Then we started making a comeback after that. So our next journey was to Hawaii. That was last year, 2023. This is our first time traveling in April during the school year, spring break. And we were on the island of Oahu. And that was our first time traveling with a private company, or that's not the word I intend to use. An independent. That was our first independent trip where we really got our own custom itinerary, the whole shebang. And I could go on and on about that at some other point in the interview. So that was Hawaii last year. And that was kind of gearing up to the next tour that we have coming up. Everybody cross your fingers, your toes. This is, everybody align your souls with Black History Month right now, because our next tour is going to be Ghana this August on a 10-day itinerary. We will have 15 spots for that trip. It's going to be a really, really huge opportunity for the school. And I also have a little bit about why it's such a huge opportunity. Everybody, should see the motherland. Ghana is a wonderful place in Africa to go visit from, so I'm told. It'll be my first time, assuming I'm able to go this time, and I intend to go. But also,
I intend to go.
Right? So listen, let me talk to my principal. We'll see what we can do, right? I was telling, who was I telling yesterday? There was I don't remember who the person was. They said, you got another spot, is it, I remember now who I was speaking to. It was the aunt of one of the students who's planning to go on the trip. Can parents go? I said, if I had $1 for every time somebody asked me that, we wouldn't have to fundraise anymore,
Right. So I'll hold the camera. I'll take the pictures, whatever.
There you go. That's the justification for it. That's enriching the trip. No, but so part of our student population is very special. The community we serve, our students are 90% Black. We have a very, very strong Black presence, Black heritage, Black culture. And now Black people know there's still a lot of diversity within that. Our students hail from the Caribbean. We have a strong Caribbean presence and culture in our school from every island that you could think of. A lot of our students they are direct African descendants. I've taught many of those scholars. In addition, an Afro-Latino community as well that we have that's strong here. So that's not to say that our community is not diverse. I think that's a common misconception, but we have a very strong Black culture here, with 90% of our student body being of African descent. Most of the remaining scholars here are of Latino descent. So our school is pretty much all Black and brown. I say that to say that a trip like this is very literally a chance for students to go to their ancestral homeland. So it just has that extra layer of meaning, to it. And I can't wait to see how our scholars how they see themselves differently, when they get what they get.
I've never been to Ghana, but everyone that I know that has, life-changing. Yeah. So you talked about 15, I believe you said there's 15 slots available. Can you share how a student becomes eligible to participate? Yes. What do they have to do, the steps, and how are they selected?
So it's a pretty open thing. So we do have a student eligibility process. It's something that happens every month that students can remain eligible for participation in programs. And the majority of the students are eligible for things most of the time. But basically, there's an application that students complete. That application is reviewed by, I like to call us our travel board. So of course, the administration has final say about what happens. This is a department. We're a DOE school. We're a public high school. We have to run like every other public high school. We have to follow the same kind of rules, right? And we're all under the chancellor's regs and everything. So it's administrative review. Students are all free to apply, and generally the students who are of good standing, and that includes the academics, that includes attendance, that includes just young people who not only are going to represent themselves in the school well, but they're also open, they're also receptive. They have that kind of curious and venturesome spirit, so there's that. And then there's also, I have we run a travel club. So once I start up, and we just started up, we meet every week between, when our travel club begins and when we eventually go to our destination. So that's also kind of the testing ground a little bit where students get to come and learn. We started learning a little bit about Ghanaian culture and history Tuesday of this week. And then those students who demonstrate the most interest, that's part of it too. And so students who apply, and then there is registration. We do charge students a small amount for the trips. This is, again, just about building that bridge. So we could do it the standard way that most schools do, and just break down the payment plan and have parents pay for, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years before, and then even very expensive trips can happen. But then what we actually do is we take the actual cost of the travel, and we have students contribute it's usually about 15% of that. Okay. So It might be, what were the exact numbers for? I'm sorry, I should have looked at these exact numbers, but it always works out to about 15% or so. So it becomes way, 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 cheaper than it would ever possibly be. But then at the same time, they still have to figure out, our students still have to figure out how to work that part out. Their families will figure that part out. And even that too is something that we sometimes will work things out with families if there's a family that has a particular need. My mother-in-law loves to sponsor our passports, and I just made another contact with someone the other day from another organization who might do passport sponsorship. So we have ways of working it all out. So that a trip that normally would cost $3,000 or $4,000, so the family is paying it maybe $600, $700 for that, that same exact trip. And there's a lot of it that the school will cover for free. A lot of the local travel and things like that are just handled. So with this particular trip, there's an overnight Washington, D.C. Journey that's taking place. This is part of a college tour, and we'll also be visiting the National Museum of African American History and Culture. I'm really psyched to go back there. I haven't been in a couple of years. That is another example of something that the school just covers. We just pay for it. My principal is excellent at forming partnerships and finding money. I don't even know where she finds it, but she finds it. There's so much that our kids are able to do free of charge. They generally don't have to pay for anything. Something like this, we have.
I hate to interrupt. Is the trip to DC connected to the trip to Ghana, or is that separate?
Yeah, it's connected. I'll say more.
Okay.
So, excuse me. So the way that I like to think of it as a program too. And I also try to be very watchful of my language and not just refer to it as a trip, because it really is a full program. So there's a roughly 6-month period for the whole process. And about 3 months of that, our students are doing local and domestic travel. So they'll be going to places like the Apollo Theater, like the Weeksville Heritage Center, like the Schomburg, right? Like the African Burial Ground in downtown Manhattan, places that they've ridden on a train past at some point, or even if they haven't, they're right there within reach. And going to these sites is about enriching our students' understanding of relationship to their African heritage. So we're setting the ground, we're laying the groundwork for when we do have our full Ghana experience. There's this step and that step and that step that has taken place previously that has prepared our students to really get the most out of the 10 days that they'll spend abroad. So yeah, the Washington, D.C. trip is a part of the whole thing.
Okay. So it's really anyone who is in good standing and
first come, first serve.
First come. When you say first come, first serve, you mean first come with the 15% or first come with the application? Just want to
both. Well, application and deposit. We do. I mean, it's kind of like what you would expect with anything. It'll be a deposit that's required. It'll usually be maybe like a $95 deposit. That's what it is for most of our trips. Where that actually is a significant thing for some families, but that's enough of a commitment, and then we'll come through and we'll start making up the rest.
Okay. Well, everyone, I'm going to make sure all of the links are, if you're just joining and you didn't hear before, we're going to have all of the links for Eric's program or the Brownsville Abroad program. They will all be in the description. And I am going to, I do a passport giveaway through Black Travel and Culture TikTok page. So sign me up for at least one passport, courtesy of Black Travel and Culture. I know you said your mother-in-law likes to donate. So if the money can be used, someplace else, go ahead. And what I do is I usually cover the passport and an extra 20 for the photographs. So sign Black Travel and Culture up for that. And we're also going to go through some images from prior trips in a few minutes. But before we do that, can you share some of the feedback from your students that have attended went through the program and was able to travel abroad with the Brownsville Abroad group? If you can share their feedback, what are some of the highlights that you've heard, and even maybe some of the not so highlights.
Oh, that's actually fun to include that some of the not so highlights. I want to start there just for fun's sake. That's fun to me. One of the things that's always an issue is the food.
Oh my good. I knew you were gonna say.
You knew I was going to say that, because it's, taking teens abroad, and sometimes they have to encounter things that they're not familiar with. And for most of the students, it's totally fine. And then there'll be those few who it's just a tricky thing. And of course, we're adults, we accommodate. Sometimes we take them to the side, they can get something familiar from somewhere else. We're not going to have our kids going hungry, but there's always a food issue. And I'm the father who's I'm like a clean your plate dad. So I'm on the, I can't help but look, I'm a dad. I got 11-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. So I'm kind of looking at them. I'm like, just, anyway, and we make it the trip.
Very finicky eaters. They're very finicky eaters.
Yes. So, but to bring it around to the main question, so students have shared a lot of things with me, and this is all. I love these reminders to go and connect with some of our previous travelers too. But one story that stands out to me, a young man by the name of Sharon. So this is 2019. He went on our South Africa trip. And one of the pieces of feedback that I received from him, actually a couple of years later, he said that it really changed his perspective on poverty. And I don't want to say too much of his own personal business. I will say that he did have some financial difficulties, and he did require a little assistance with being able to go on the trip. I hope that that's not saying too much, but for him, going on the trip, he said that when he saw, so there was one portion of the South Africa trip where they visited a place called Shangaan Village, and he interacted with children there who, from his point of view as an American, as an American citizen, as somebody from New York City and all that, he felt like the kids there, they really didn't have much. They didn't have the kinds of things that here are basic. But he was very surprised at just how happy they were. They were so content. In fact, they actually were probably happier than a lot of the people that he sees and interacts with on a daily basis. And that was a very, very powerful thing for him to observe, one, to see what poverty looks like in different places in the world, right? But then also to see how people can take so much joy and so much fulfillment from other things than their things, And something that I tried to emphasize before too is like, there's some stuff you can tell somebody, you can show somebody, you can give it to them in a book or even a great story, but it's different for them to actually go and witness something for themselves and discover for themselves something else about life, about themselves, about the world, right? So that was one. Even just other things, like for many, many, many of our students, it's their first time being on a plane, like period. I'm thinking about one student in particular whose name is Javon. He was on our first trip, and he was not going on the trip. And part of it was because of the flight. He was, without not to beat around the bush with it. He had a fear of flying. He was scared of the flying part, which is understandable. We don't have wings. We don't belong in the air. Right. So, but it was his mother in particular that really encouraged him, to go ahead and step over that and push that aside. I've heard that many, many times from our scholars as well. They were like, and the people are around them like, no, you don't understand. You have to do this. I'm expecting that to happen a little bit with Ghana too. Where students they might not be that interested, or they don't really see the value, but the people around them have heard and have seen, and they say, no, you need this. Here, I'm helping you to, we're going to do that. I'm taking you to the passport office, right? So for many of our students, even that is something that is a breakthrough for them, or it's a milestone for them. This is their first time that they left the country sometimes. This is their first time that they were on a plane sometimes, So that's something else that's very common. There's one of our students who was on the Spain trip. Was this from the Spain trip? It was, yes. So this was why somebody car horn beeping outside. So one of our students, I'm giving you that authentic This is a real Brooklyn feel.
This is New York.
This is New York, and I'm regretting leaving the windows open, but it was hot in my room. What can I do? I'm letting all the noise in. So there was
authentic.
Authentic. That's right. You're getting the real. This is not a studio. Right? So a student by the name of Brian, he was one of our 10 travelers on the Spain trip. And he told me this years later, and I wouldn't have thought it at the time. And that's another beautiful thing too, when the impact of the trip carries out over time, right? When it's not even just that moment. But he started his career as a cook. This was, part of the work that he was doing. I think while he was pursuing his degree, he was working as a cook. And at some point, he chose to leave his job. And he found a job that was better. He is working as a chef now. He's currently employed as that. He's treated better. He's paid better. Everything about his job and his position is better. But he had a fear of leaving the first position. He felt like he's not guaranteed to have better, and he didn't know if he really deserved better. So the thing that kind of surprised me was he shared that part of where the inspiration for that actually came from was from the trip to Spain. So one of the things that we did when we were there, the students interacted with a community of expats. I think the particular night he's talking about, we went to go, there were a few different exposures they had. I have to shout out Melanin Madrid. So Melanin Madrid is the group that exists there. And it's much like what it sounds. It's a community of Black African descended people living in Madrid or other parts of Spain. And they're just networking and, just being in community with each other. So they also hosted us at a couple of different events. There was one event where one of their members came and sat with the kids. Majida Mundial is her name. She came and sat with the kids and talked with them and just spoke about travel and journey and going beyond and going outside the box, right? So there was that. We also went to a show. We were invited to come and visit and see a show that was performed by Erin Corrine, another one of their members. The students were welcomed in. They had a really awesome night and got some footage of them, vibing out in the club while, somebody's, it was just a really fun thing to add to the trip. It was a supplement. It definitely was not on the itinerary, right? But we're able to add those things sometimes through partnerships. And so Brian shared to me, seeing people who not even changed a job, they picked up their whole lives and they started over somewhere else. And actually, that was something I did too. I mean, he didn't get to see that, whatever. That's what I did too. But then him getting to see that other people doing that through that trip, the idea of going to a whole other part of the world where you don't know anybody, but you just have an intention, you have a plan or a goal or a dream, and you just are in search of something better or in search of something new. And he said that gave him the courage to quit his job, tell his boss to shove it. I'm sure that's not what he said, but to quit his job and then go and find something better. And it was an upgrade for him. And he had the courage to do that because of the experience he had with our travels. So that was such a non-obvious and also such an inspiring and a cool thing to hear. And there's 100 other stories that I don't know because for whatever reason, I haven't heard them yet. I guess I got to make some phone calls, because our students, they go on our trips and then they go and graduate out into the world and they go, spread their wings and fly. So I'm sure there's a lot more that I haven't even heard. But what I have heard has been enough to inspire me to continue to do what we do.
Hearing the stories from people like Brian and Javon and hearing that things that you don't even think about, like just meeting with an expat community allows you to embrace a sense of fearlessness, right? You may be a little nervous, navigating through certain things, but when you reflect on how people truly uprooted their whole lives and, move to another country where English is not even the dominant, English is rarely spoken, actually, depending on what part of Spain you go to. It's a story that, again, I want everyone to hear. And if you're listening now, please share this video. I really want, before we get into that, because I do want to get to the photos too, and I see the time is a ticking, but I do want to share just the personal story from when I went to Hawaii as a 17-year-old high school senior. Actually, it was June, so I had just graduated from high school. But it was such a life-changing experience for someone who was born and raised in New York to visit someplace where they actually have pink sand and black sand beaches. Who knew? Like, I don't even want a regular beach anymore. Bring me the pink sand and black sand beaches. And as someone who loved pineapples from a young child, I had been hoodwinked and bamboozled by the Dole pineapples in a can. And I went to Hawaii and taste the first time I bit into a pineapple in Hawaii, it was like I transformed to heaven. It was just the most euphoric experience. It does not taste the same. And that literally gave me the, not right then and there, but it gave me it planted a seed that I needed to see more of this. I needed to taste more foods from different places. I needed to see beaches that didn't look like Coney Island or, Jones Beach. And so saying all that to say, when you mentioned that you haven't heard some of the stories yet, they're percolating. They're percolating. And it's only been since 2017, I think you said was the first trip.
Yes.
So you will have students 5, 10, 15 years from now sharing how the ability to participate in the Brownsville Abroad program has transformed their life in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So again, I am going to start pulling up the photos, but if you can share more about your crowdfunding and how you source partnerships and funds to make this program a success, because I know it's not cheap. Far from cheap. Going to Ghana with 15, is that 15 students plus the chaperones and adults?
Right. So there's that too. Right. Yeah. So for all of our trips, we've had 3 chaperones. That's just the number that we have per chancellor's regs. That's the minimum that we have to have. And then, like you said, depending on how the trip is being funded and everything, that they have to be paid for too. In terms of how the funding works, the crowd fund is usually the most effective, or just in terms of the volume, I guess, the volume of the support that we get. Usually a lot of it comes through the crowd fund. Crowdfunding is, there's also like a lot of people have GoFundMe fatigue now, where the support is not quite what it was. But at any rate, one of our strongest aspects is the fact that it's really like a larger community-based way of funding travel. It really is about extending the village. And I find that a lot of folks, once they hear about what we're up to, it just kind of makes sense, So it's just about, what we do is really just about finding the best ways to get the word out there. And I'm saying that because I know that there are educators who are considering these kinds of things. A former colleague is referring somebody else to me who wants to do a similar program in their school, or at least a trip or two, right? So that's one component of it. But our funding has always been multifaceted. You can't, not putting all your eggs in one basket, right? So something else that's part of it too, we do, I like to call them community fundraisers. So these are student-led events that we hold throughout the year. And at these events, there's a number of different activities that we do, but these are part of giving our scholars a hands-on experience of making this all work, of making it all possible, right? So some of my favorite community fundraisers, I don't know which one is my absolute favorite. It might be, so we'll start with the So They Can Fly 5K, the Run So They Can Fly 5K. So we do that every spring. And I have to give a special thank you to the Prospect Park Track Club. So what we will usually do, we'll go to one of their 5Ks. They have a series that they do every year. And I'll bring the students in. The students will reach out in their communities and they'll find sponsors who will sponsor them for $3 per kilometer, $5 per kilometer, maybe $10 per kilometer, perhaps. And then they go and do the 5K. And it's a fun event. And it's just enough that it's a real challenge. And it also, of course, has that health and wellness component to it as well, right? And also, I think there's a nice metaphor. There's a nice symbolism to us going out and running and walking to have that opportunity to fly. So that is authenticity in the background again.
And I'm a New Yorker, so I hear it, but I don't hear it.
It's like we don't even notice it at this point. Somebody, somebody's making a funny face. You're like, what's wrong? Is there something on my face? Yeah. Right. So that's one of ours. I like to call it the Run So They Can Fly 5K. We do that each and every year. So, people who are following us, there will be announcements. I always do post updates, mainly through the GoFundMe or through my Facebook page. People can check us out there. We also have an Instagram page as well. I don't think I'm supposed to mention it because I cannot share images of current scholars, with anything that involves fundraising. That's, again, just goes back to, policies and such. I mean, I would love to show you who you're benefiting right now, but I can do that on the back end. People who have already supported, then I can send them. Of course, they're going to see the updates. I'm going to send you updates, so you can see. All right. So that's one of our fundraisers. Another one that we do is the So They Can Fly art auction. Very fun. We always host that here in Brownsville. We choose different destinations in Brownsville proper. And so the way that it works, very simply, current and former FDA 7 scholars create original artwork inspired by our destination for that year. So we'll have artwork inspired by this Ghana program, this Ghana journey.
Oh, wow.
And we'll be auctioning it off. We'll auction it off, and the proceeds all go into the travel fund. I also want to mention as well, all of our fundraising is completely managed by the school. It literally goes straight into the school's bank account. And, the school, our assistant principal is the person who manages the finances of the account. So it's, the spreadsheets and all of that. I know that's a concern for some folks. 0% of the money goes towards anything else. I have a salary. This does not, if anybody ever thought that any of this it's not that kind of thing. I don't need a salary through this, so there's that. That's kind of that's I think that's the main kind of
I
thing
also
there.
want to mention, because I participated in the GoFundMe this past weekend, where Mr. Eric, not only does he not collect money, he's an active donator, and he matched 10% of all donations that came in this past weekend. Excuse me, sorry. This past weekend. And there's another matching partner. Did you mention the matching partner?
Thank you. Yes. So, right. We totally planned that out. We planned that out. I dropped the bullet point, so Kim picked it up. Right. So we also have a partnership with Birthright Africa, and this is huge. That's been really, really beneficial to us. It just so happens that I was already familiar with, I was an acquaintance of Diallo Shabazz, who's one of the co-founders, and he introduced me to Wala El Sheikh. She's the other co-founder. I found out about them, and it just all clicked and made sense. So for anybody who doesn't know about Birthright Africa, first of all, Google them, look them up, contribute to them. They are a very important organization. And so their whole concept is very similar to Birthright Israel. It's the same concept, the concept of the birthright, trip or travel, right? Oh, okay. The idea that young people of the African diaspora, as our birthright, deserve to have the experience. I'm not young anymore. Deserve to have the experience to travel directly to the motherland. So what do? So they fund travel for young people who identify as African descended between the ages of 13 and 30. And they do, of course, a lot of very successful fundraising behind that. They have partnerships with everybody. At the time that I found out about them in 2019, this was just before our South Africa trip, they had a partnership with HBO at the time. They did a campaign involving them. I know Jadena, the artist Jadena, is a part of their board. He's one of the people behind them, helping them operate. So they just, that's only, I'm scratching the surface, but thank you for mentioning that. I always have to mention them and shout them out and thank them. So they were a 50-50 partner in our South Africa trip. They are currently a 50-50 partner in our Ghana trip. So that gives us, we still have a lot of fundraising to do, of course. Yes. But the fact that we have a 50-50 partner is, that is key. It really is.
It's going to make it's what will allow this trip to happen, basically.
It makes it possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, it's all about community. And that's why I thought it was so important to have this conversation with you. But I know with the sharing of the word, everyone getting this word out, we can have an impact. No matter how large, how small, we can have an impact. And that's what I want us to do. So you talked about the auction. Is there a website? Is there someplace they could sign up for more information? Can you give out?
Yeah, let me just, I keep it real simple, just contact me.
Okay.
So first and foremost, very important information in terms of how to directly support the GoFundMe page. It's too easy to, right? So it's GoFundMe.com/Brownsville-TO-Ghana, so Brownsville to Ghana is literally just straight up what it is. So that's how you can find us, the easiest way to find us. Those who do donate, you have an opportunity to leave your contact information, your email, and then you will receive regular updates. You'll receive a thank you from me within 24 hours. I do all of those myself. I write those directly to our supporters. And at that point, you're part of our donor community. So when I share images of this activity, that activity, we have a Washington, D.C. trip coming up in March 13th and 14th. One of the things you'll get to see some of the highlights of that after that happens. So that's through the GoFundMe page, right? GoFundMe.com/Brownsville-TO-Ghana. People can also contact me directly. I won't share my cell. I'll give my email address. So my work email is mrjordan@fda7.org. So you can get Mr. Jordan directly. I keep it simple. That's how you get me. You can also contact Frederick Douglass Academy VII in Brownsville, Brooklyn. You can just look us up, Google us. We're around. We're easy to find. So FDA7, mrjordan@fda7.org. That's how you get at us if you want to contact me directly. We love when we have enriching partnerships. There's somebody out there who's hearing this right now who, could come in and do a workshop for the kids, but they meet on Tuesdays after school. You can come in and spend a half hour telling them about, an important part of Ghanaian history or culture or what have you, that is probably my favorite part of the crowdfund, is that it also becomes a way for people to find other ways to contribute to us. One of my favorites was someone saw a news report. We were real lucky, got on News 12 a couple of times. One time we got on there, a local librarian or a library employee found out about us. He came and created a Japanese language class for our students who are planning on going on the Japan trip, right? So that kind of thing, I never would have contacted him. I never would have known that existed, even though he worked 3 blocks away from our school, or 4 or 5 blocks. So I love that we have to broadcast, because sometimes it means that these wonderful partnerships and these connections come to be. So there are many ways to support.
Okay, wonderful. So I am going to just try to show a few pictures, not many, just so people can see the scholars in action abroad.
Yes.
So just give me 1 second.
Action photos.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Wonderful. So
yes.
You could share a little commentary about what we're looking at.
Sure thing. So this is our South Africa trip, of course. Oh, my Lord, I'm going to forget the gentleman's name, but this is, I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to email you the name, but this is a memorial park that we're visiting in South Africa. Okay. Oh, I love this shot. This is from our Hawaii trip, of course. The students were able to visit the beach a time or two. This particular shot, this was part of a cleansing ceremony that we did that was hosted. We had a kumu. The word is kumu. That's their word for teacher, but it means other things as well. So he traveled with us throughout the trip, and there were very many spiritual and ancestral practices that students were able to participate in. It was so rich. And this was a cleansing ceremony that they did in the ocean. Yeah, this is us at Pearl Harbor. So we stopped over there as well. Not as much to say about that one. Actually, I could have said, I'll throw this last one in. So just in your mind, think back to the last picture. So we, the students learned a lot about militarization, and they learned the Hawaiian story of Hawaii. And this was something that was extremely important for that trip. In fact, we actually left a tour company that we originally booked with, because when I compared, what we were going to get was sort of the standard regular, but what we ended up getting was like the real authentic story. So students really learned they still got to go to the same places and also other places, but they got to learn from the Hawaiian perspective of, Pearl Harbor. That's as much as I can give right now. Yeah.
Wonderful. I'm just going to go through. I mean, you could give a couple words, but I want to get to. I got
to talk about this one. So this was okay. So this one too, again, like that private itinerary, that custom itinerary that we got. It really matters who you travel with. And again, with the shout outs, I want to shout out Dr. Kiona. And I also want to shout out Carmela. Oh my Lord, I forgot her last name. So Carmela, who also supported us with this trip as well. You can look up either one of them. Carmela is formerly of Flight, the organization Flight, FLYTE. And both of them helped us out with this trip. This was students in the mountains at a private farm, and they harvested taro. They maintained the taro leaves, and they harvested tea leaves, and also cooked some food straight from the earth. They were in the mud in there, so that was a very important part of that trip.
Love it, love it.
Okay. Shout out on this one goes, so you can see his name at the top there. This is Paris Whittingham, who is a local photographer, contacted me, said, hey man, how about I donate a photography session? And he did that. And a lot of that was about it, of course, is helpful campaign wise, but also the effect of having a photo session and how it makes you reflect on yourself and see yourself positively and see themselves. So when part of the setup for this, he really had them think about what makes you feel regal. You know, what do you wear that makes you feel regal? What are the things you do that make you feel regal, like a king, like a queen? And he had them, come in that was some of the prep that went behind this. So, yeah.
I love it. I love it. And what I'll probably do is, as I, share more clips from our interview, I'll incorporate some more images so people can get a feel for, now this looks like New York.
Yes,
get a feel for,
yeah.
for the experiences that these scholars have participated in.
So this is right outside FDA 7 for this one.
Oh, wonderful.
That's part of our Japan group.
New York. Okay. And so not to belabor the point, Eric, but I do want to know, are there any highlights for the Ghana trip that you can share? And what is your vision for the future of Brownsville abroad?
So, just briefly, and I like to be mysterious. So, especially about things that haven't happened yet. I'm very superstitious in that way. But we're planning on staying in the Accra area. We talked about possibly traveling to Kumasi or some of the other areas that are important in Ghana, but we're going to keep it in Accra and the surrounding areas. We're looking at a 10-day itinerary. So that's at least 8 days on the ground that students are going to be there. And so we're looking at everything from the W.E.B. Du Bois Memorial. We're looking at, of course, some of the slave castles that we're planning on seeing. And, that's just for, I feel that it's necessary, right? And it's not to introduce too much negativity, and it's not to introduce too much trauma, but it is to really understand fully what has happened, So everything from, we're going to, the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial will be I'll be mysterious about the rest, but there'll be that. There's going to be plenty. And I'll stay mysterious about the rest, but we have a company picked out that we're working with that it's going to be, this is our second trip where we'll have a custom itinerary where we really get to go in and we're planning on putting a little bit of service learning in there as well. That's something that we did with the Pono Luau that you saw, the part where I mentioned harvesting. That technically was luau, but it was luau done the right way. It's not the way you see on TV. It's very different. So we'll find ways to do that with the Ghana trip as well, including service learning, including direct contact. We usually have a school visit that we do. We did that with the Hawaii trip as well. We visited Farrington High. Shout out to Farrington High as well over there. See how the young people live. So, and as far as the future of Brownsville abroad, just I breathe a sigh. I'm like, I have papers to grade too. I have lesson plans to write. So as far as the future of Brownsville abroad, I just today spoke to my principal about that, and she asked me, where should we, right? So I threw a little survey question on there because we had assemblies for grade levels and started asking students. I always like to plant that little seed and ask them where they want to go next. And I think for our students who go in this trip, they'll get a chance when they come back. What's your vote? I like to make it as democratic as possible. And we've done that before with some of our trips where we literally take it down to a vote where y'all want to go. And we talk about the pluses and minuses. And so future of Brownsville abroad, I want us to continue to do what we've been doing. My original vision for our travel was 7 continents in 7 years, including Antarctica now. That's what that includes. That could be possible.
I know. I'll be on that trip too.
Hey, right? So that's something for us to consider too. And then the larger vision of it, I really my not so secret conspiracy that I'm recruiting everyone into, I've now recruited you into my conspiracy as well, is to make it more common, to make it normal, to make it typical for students in schools throughout the city to have these kinds of experiences. I want it to be so normal that it doesn't even feel, out of the ordinary or extraordinary that we're doing what we're doing. And I think that we can achieve that. I think we can encourage other people to try more. We can lean on some of our elected officials a little more. I have somebody I need to email after we get off of this to make it, again, more common to where it becomes a budget item. Yeah.
Do you have any contacts on the Ghana side, the Ghana tourism side? Are you speaking to anyone there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just was curious because I know a couple people there. So,
Okay.
but no, I definitely wanted to thank you for this conversation. You are the epitome of I can show you better than I could tell you from someone who took the risk and experienced Spanish culture on your gap year and knew that, keeping that type of mission alive with the youth, I should say, and these scholars would be forever, transformative. So I want to thank you for not only, continuing down this road, because I know it's not an easy one. You don't look stressed, but I'm sure you have some sleepless nights, especially as you get closer to, final payment dates.
Yes.
So we know it's the end of the day, Eric. We are going to let you go, but maybe we'll have you back. But either way, Black Travel and Culture, you have our commitment to support in any way we can. And we're only an email or phone call away. But we thank you for your time. And everyone, please follow the GoFundMe page, support the GoFundMe page. And if you have any further questions, you can email Eric. All of his information will be in the description below. So until next time, guys, any last words, Eric?
Just to anyone who chooses to support, just thank you. You literally are the bridge to another part of the world for our scholars. So just can't thank you enough.
Until next time, guys, thank you.